Azov. Now, they might look like just another regiment in the Ukrainian military, but there's a darker side. For starters, the FBI has accused them of training and radicalizing white supremacy groups in the U.S. And because of their extreme ideology, Congress has banned them from acquiring U.S. weapons. So who is Azov, and what is it about them that mesmerizes white nationalists in the U.S. and around the world? We went to Ukraine to meet them, to the port city of Mariupol.
You realize that you came here to kill enemies of your country, and you should do that because you're a soldier.
It all started in 2014. Russia annexed Crimea in southern Ukraine and helped pro-Russian separatists attack the east. The Ukrainian army was caught off guard and desperate for anyone willing to fight, even if that meant street brawlers, soccer hooligans, and even neo-Nazis. In other words, the men that would come to be known as Azov.
Like me.
Oh, you were a soccer hooligan?
Yes. I'm a soccer hooligan.
Help me understand. I mean, why would a bunch of soccer hooligans want to join the war?
Our soccer hooligans, it's like nationalistic young people, you know. And if you're nationalist, you love your country more than just people who work.
Are you a nationalist?
Yes, I'm nationalist.
Today, Azov is officially part of the National Guard, but it's also a well-organized far-right social movement with programs that teach men and women, young and old, how to fight, both on the battlefield and off. But who's the enemy? One thing is for sure, Azov has captured the imagination of white nationalists around the world. Remember the shooter who killed 50 people at a mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand? The flak jacket he wore featured a symbol commonly used by Azov. And the violence in Charlottesville? Several of the men accused of starting it came to Kiev, engaged in MMA training with Azov members, and met with Olena Semeniaka, who leads Azov's international arm.
Does Azov disavow these men in particular who you welcomed here in Kiev?
We welcomed them at Reconquista Club as a sports group. So as a sports group which participated in the club and has affiliation to some other kind of activities, we cannot disavow it.
But the reality is that Azov has captured the imaginations of a lot of very violent people. So why do you think a lot of white supremacists around the world are drawn to Azov?
In my opinion, that's because they don't have abilities to maybe manifest their patriotic sentiments in their society, or at least it is quite limited there.
According to the U.S. State Department, Azov is a nationalist hate group. Is Azov a hate group?
I think it's the problem of social discourse in the West that it's hard to make correct distinctions between hate groups and nationalists.
Is Azov a neo-Nazi group?
No, I would never describe it like that.
They're absolutely trying to gaslight you.
Michael Colburn tracks the far right in Eastern Europe.
They have what scholars of the far right call like a front stage and a backstage. But the backstage is where you see the nastier side of things. The backstage is where you see the violent extremists being welcomed in as allies of the organization. The appeal for an American extremist is that they can get linked up to an organization that can provide them training, like training in terms of how, like weapons training, mixed martial arts training on how to do violence, and they can do that relatively openly here. A lot of far-right extremists in the United States and in the UK and Canada and other places, they see Azov in Ukraine right now as like the greatest hope for like a national socialist revolution.
On several documented occasions, it's recruited or encouraged Americans to join its ranks. One of its would-be recruits, Jared William Smith, the radicalized U.S. Army soldier who the FBI says was trying to build a bomb to blow up a U.S. news network. The FBI says before he joined the Army, he was hoping to join Azov. This at a time in U.S. history when white supremacists, as opposed to jihadists, are responsible for more than 70% of extremist murders, according to the Anti-Defamation League, which tracks hate in America.
The concern is that they're a group that is in a position to enable far-right extremism across the world. That's what's worrisome to me. And that's
Including the U.S.
including the United States, yes.
Technically, it's illegal to display swastikas in Ukraine, but Nazi emblems aren't hard to find, even out in the open. But are these extreme ideas catching on in Ukraine? At this anti-LGBT rally, some of them are on display. At last year's Pride March, things turned violent when counter-protesters showed up. And today, violence is never far away. Neither is Azov.
Як зараз пам'ятаю момент.
Ми виступаємо сьогодні проти ЛГБТ.
Back in Mariupol, where the rise of Azov began, some locals are uneasy.
We never saw their faces. Every time they've attacked us, they never showed.
But so, hold on, they attacked you?
Well, that was several times. On one hand, I really respect people who fight, who die there, and who has liberated Mariupol, and who still fight in Shirokin and all over the front line. But on the other hand, I really understand how dangerous is this ideology.
It wasn't that long ago that Ukraine fought tooth and nail against the Nazis in World War II, so it's hard to understand how such extreme ideas could be making a comeback. To be clear, Nazism is far from mainstream in Ukraine. The country just elected its first Jewish president, and Azov isn't about to take over the country. But in today's globalized world, its ideas are catching on.